Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Want to welcome you to, excuse me, want to welcome you to our fifth Economic Development Breakfast Briefing. And this morning, we have New Mexico State joining us today. And this has been a process that has been building over the past year and a half. Mr. Martinez here, Lenny Martinez, brought the Chancellor up to NAPI. And it was there that he brought his economic development group out of New Mexico State, looking at how they could have more of a presence here in San Juan County, but how could they partner with the area? As a result of those initial discussions, we began to work with them, and now we've got a hydrogen initiative that's well on its way. We are working on agricultural development here in the region. We've developed a really good relationship with NAPI, and we're looking at how we can then expand that, looking at our smaller farms and our mid-sized farms in the region, both on and off the reservation. We're looking at economic development as a whole, and how do we begin to enhance that, looking at the Quality Center for Business, looking at the makerspace, looking at incubators, looking at a number of different areas that the Arrowhead Center would be involved in. So again, we're building these relationships, and this is an opportunity for us to hear what New Mexico State has to say. And so I'm going to be asking Dr. Luis Cifuentes to come up, introduce his team here that he has. And as I indicated before, the restrooms are over by the theater area. If you need to go there, these restrooms here are not open. Also, after the meeting is completed, in room number 3, you see the door here. There's going to be a discussion with the group looking at the hydrogen initiative. They'll be meeting in group in room number 3 and room number 2 here. Those that we've asked to join us in a discussion on economic development. We'll be joining Dr. Van Winkle in that room. And there'll be a third group that will be going to the Quality Center for Business. And they'll be touring that area, seeing what the facilities are available here, the makerspace, and what we all have in the region here. And so again, we're looking to have a very productive and busy day with New Mexico State. So with that, I'd like to turn the podium over to Dr. Cifuentes, and we'll start the show from here. Luis? Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Luis Cifuentes. My role at New Mexico State is the Vice President for Research, Creativity, and Strategic Initiatives. That's a pretty long title, isn't it? Thank you very much for inviting us here. Weather's absolutely wonderful. The flight over was fantastic. I always love that. The land here is just absolutely beautiful. So, Arvin, thank you for the invitation. You did say that I was going to introduce our team, but I'm actually going to ask the team to introduce themselves. So before we move on to the rest of this morning's presentations, I will hand over the mic to Dr. Ken Van Winkle, and then we'll move across to the left.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ken Van Winkle, and I'm the Associate Vice Chancellor for Economic Development and External Relations. And it's a privilege to be here this morning. My uncle was a pharmacist in Farmington for many years. In fact, I was named after him, Kenneth Van Winkle, and so I just love this part of the country. Very excited to talk to some of the civic leaders this morning about economic development, and hopefully we can share some ideas and help our state become more economic development oriented and successful. So thank you very much.
Good morning. I'm Rolando Flores. I'm the Dean of the College of Agricultural, Consumer, and Environmental Sciences. So we are known for long names. But you can call us the College of Aces. So I have a presentation for you, so I'm not going to go into much detail, but I'm deeply honored to be here, and just a beautiful day, and it's always nice to come here. Thank you.
I'm Jay Lillywhite. I'm the department head for agricultural economics and agricultural business and extension economics, and I'm a co-director for the Center of Excellence in Sustainable Food and Agricultural Systems, where we focus on post-harvest value-added business opportunities.
Hi, my name is Kurt Whittingham. I'm a program director at Arrowhead Center. I work on economic research and entrepreneurship programs and economic development as well. And so we've got some pretty cool stuff going on with San Juan College, and we're excited to continue that as well. Thanks for having us.
So, Chancellor Arvizu sends his welcome and thank you for the invitation. He had planned to be here today, but the Chancellor is a member of the President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology, and he was called by the President, and so he's not with us this morning. But he did put together a presentation that we will share with you. I think you will see that things at New Mexico State University are now moving in a very exciting, energetic way after a difficult time period with COVID. And so without further ado, Dr. Arvizu's presentation.
Good morning. I'm Dan Arvizu, Chancellor of New Mexico State University, and I wanted to first of all apologize for not being with you there in Farmington in person. I had a purpose to be there and to spend a little bit of time with a local community. But unfortunately my calendar and my schedule is not one that I control entirely, and so I've got some conflicts and some other things that I have to attend to. But I will be with you there in spirit. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to say a few words, to talk a little bit about the great stuff that's going on at New Mexico State University, and to really encourage the fact that we are very anxious to be in partnership with all the communities in New Mexico, especially with those here in the Northwest. So let me just start by saying, I gave a State of the University address a couple of weeks ago, and this presentation in an expanded version is on my website, and you'll have access to it, and certainly you'll have access to this one as well. But I wanted to just give you a few highlights, and hopefully that'll be encouragement and inspirational to start your discussions today, and be having hopefully a very, very good workshop and the rest of the time that you all are together. So let me just start by saying, one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we've been focused on a lot of things that are challenging for New Mexico State University. Certainly coming out of the pandemic has been extremely challenging for all of us, but the future is bright, and what I hope to be able to convey to you today is that there's certainly a bright light on the horizon. We're headed toward that light. The trajectory that the university is on has turned a corner, and I'm very optimistic about what the future holds. So I'll talk a little bit about highlights of our goals, and then maybe say a few more words about economic development. So one very prestigious award that we've won this year is one that was delivered by the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, and it really is highlighting the quality of our education at NMSU, and we're one of the Hispanic Serving Institution leaders that Department of State's Bureau of Education and Cultural Affairs has recognized us with. And we are one of 43 universities that are selected for that particular award and honor, and only one of 24 of those institutions that actually provide doctoral support and doctoral degree for our students. There are actually over 500 HSIs in the country, and so it's good to be named, kind of in the top 10% of that particular level of distinction. A number of schools from around our region are there. There's only a couple of schools in New Mexico, obviously UNM and ourselves. There's a few schools in Texas, including UTEP. There's 6 of those. And so we have a unique distinction, I think, of being serving a certain kind of demographic that a lot of folks, I think, are focused on these days. Going to the next slide, additional accolades. There's been a number of others that we like to focus on. One of the things that I guess I'm particularly proud of is our physical sciences laboratory and how we support federal research in this particular state. New Mexico gets a lot of federal grant money through the Department of Defense, through our military installations and others, and so it's important for us to be part of those programs. And one that I'm particularly proud of is our physical sciences laboratory, who have been piloting a program we call CREW, Classified Ready Employment Workforce, and that program has led us to gain a $2 million training program, a grant from the Department of Defense for this civilian training corps, which is a pilot that'll help increase not just the diversity of the federal workforce, but also provide STEM discipline graduates, and some of those will have their security clearance already established when they graduate from their program. This is very, very popular within the Department of Defense, and that's really something we're very, very proud of. In this photograph, you're seeing our Aggie team that we call the Atomic Aggies. They have a competition every year at the Sunport, Sun Space, efforts that are looking at launching rockets. And our team won the so-called Chili Cup, which is the competition within New Mexico schools of that particular competition. We did pretty well in the overall competition. It's at the national level, and we're very, very pleased to have had that recognition and as the top team in New Mexico. And that was done at the spaceport not too long ago, and we're very, very pleased with the outcome of that one. Speaking of launching rockets, though, one of the things we are really, really proud of in terms of our enrollment numbers is our online programs. We have really made an effort and an investment to create an NMSU we call it NMSU Online initiative and program, and it is already starting to really take off and pay some significant dividends. It's not lost on us that a lot of students in New Mexico need another way to otherwise gain an education. And we have 55,000 plus or so students in the state of New Mexico taking online courses from providers that are not from New Mexico. So we're going to kind of take over that marketplace a little bit and be part of making sure that we can provide the education for New Mexico residents in more ways and to be able to reach more people as well. And so that is really something that we're very, very excited about, because this program is helping us in a lot of different ways, and it is in fact an expansion of our educational services, and those are things that we will be providing. And this it promises to be a very, very important part of our forward-looking strategy. So you'll hear more about this as time goes on. Again, a couple of thousand students is kind of what we'll be seeing by the end of the spring semester, early next year, and then it'll just grow from there. So we're really, really excited about where that's going to go. Speaking of enrollments, in general, we have had a very, very good, turn the corner kind of year. Very proud that on the main campus our enrollment is up to 2.6%, and we're very, very pleased with that. Our freshman class is the first time full-time freshman class is the largest class we've had since 2009. We're very, very pleased with that particular development, because it is in fact indicative of how the trajectory will go for the next few years. You can see that our grants, Alamogordo and Doña Ana campuses also grew. Each of them grew by a proportion very similar to the losses that they had experienced during the pandemic. So these are recovery kind of numbers. That's why I titled the slide "Recovery," because frankly we're not yet back in some cases to our 2019 numbers, but we're getting there very quickly, and we begin to see that begin to grow. And what I'm very proud of is that over time, if we can continue to grow at this rate and pace, we'll be on track for what we had originally expected to be at. Even 4 years ago when we talked about where do we want to be in 2025. So we're on track despite the pandemic. So that's very, very good news for all of us. Speaking of good news again, is our research expenditures, as you can see by this graph, are really starting to really take off. We've had a lot of investment in going after grants, helping our principal investigators to write those grants and to be more competitive going forward, and that's beginning to pay off. And you can see these numbers. These are fairly important improvements. I think $25 million over the last 4 years in terms of annual expenditure increase, which has been quite an important part, I think, of where we've been and where we need to go for the R1 status. In our outreach programs, I think our agriculture experiment stations and our cooperative extension service are both very, very important in terms of outreach and certainly in reaching the various communities across the state of New Mexico. We were very challenged this past year with the wildfires, and specifically the one that was very much I think creating a lot of havoc with our seed bank and our thousands of seedlings that we use to help repopulate the forest when we have events like this. So it just showed how vulnerable we are. And we've been talking to both the federal government and USDA and others who can help us reestablish that capacity and capability for the state. So we're very, very pleased about that. A lot of effort going on there. Another area that is somewhat of note, and it's in our goal 4, which is our robust university, is the fact that we've got of activity going on in our athletics programs. Athletics programs sometimes, begin to be the place where you get recognized. We've had some success in our basketball programs for a number of years, but we've not had as much so in the football programs because we've not been in a conference that actually played football. So now we have the opportunity to be in a new conference with the Conference USA that'll start in the fall of next year. And so we're very, very pleased about both not only getting into the conference and what that means to us, but that we've hired a few new coaches, and they have brought a whole new perspective and a whole new, I think, encouragement and inspiration around our athletic programs, not just our primary sports, but all the other sports as well, 16 sports that we have. And we're beginning to see our student athletes be great ambassadors for the university in terms of recruiting and a variety of things. And I expect we'll see some good performance results as well. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a fun time for the next couple of years. Again, focused on not just our performance on the field, but how these student athletes actually perform academically, and also how they become really, I think, ambassadors for our university. And of course, nothing better than having an AD that's very entrepreneurial and provides innovation and creativity. We got a bunch of products that we host as sponsored through the university, and through those we actually have revenue generation, and that's beginning to pay a few dividends for our athletics programs as well. Speaking of economic development, writ large, we have a number of partners, and very, very pleased with the partnership we have here with Four Corners Economic Development, a number across the state. Arrowhead Center is our primary focused entity that partners with all of these various entities, which you see here the logos of across the state, and we're very, very pleased with the economic development work that we're doing. We need to do a lot more, and so this conversation that you all would have today in terms of how can the university be part of your economic development strategies and plans, and how can we partner is really, really important as we go forward. So stay tuned for a lot more discussions in each one of these areas, and how can we collaborate and pull together all of the various people interested in economic development across the state. One thing that I would say is we've got a new legislative session coming up. The good news is there's a significant amount of money to be allocated. Most of it is one-time money. We recognize that. It's a real direct result of oil and gas's receipts. So we're pleased to have that opportunity. But we need to be very, very strategic about how we go after those funds and how they can be applied. So we'll be working with the legislature and the executive very, very closely on making sure that they understand what our critical needs are, and we'll go after those so that we're in a position to be a better partner both in the state and in our various communities. We are very, very focused on all things economic development, job creation, especially in those areas where we have underserved both residents and both functions within our critical established functions, things like nursing and educators and social workers. Those are all areas that we know there are needs across the state. We'll be helping to try to fill those jobs that are out there, plus create new ones. And this is where we need your help and your partnership. We will go ask the legislature for things that help us to support our student success as well as our physical and IT infrastructure. A lot of effort going on in those areas. The last thing I'll say really has to do with kind of our strategy. Our strategy, as we've talked about before, student success, research, outreach, and then all things that relate to being a robust university and efficiency. we're going to add a couple of additional emphasis to our strategy. One of those is online. I've mentioned that earlier because we have so many needs in the state that can be done through a digital asset like our online programs. Not just our online programs, but our on-demand programs as well, which is going to be using our digital assets in ways that we can both educate students as well as populations of employers. So we can work with a business-to-business strategy and providing online programs when we're already started with those programs. The second piece is really that we'll add is an emphasis on equity, inclusion, and diversity. And the reason that we are doing that is not because we're not already pretty diverse. Our population is very diverse. We have a very, very diverse student population. Our faculties don't necessarily mirror that, and I think our aspirations are that we would have a very robust profile of our educators as well as our administrators that looks like the demographics that we serve. And so we'll be working on those things. I think it's important that people recognize that we are here to serve all of our students, the underserved and those that are more privileged, but it doesn't really matter. But we're here to make sure that if you are accepted at our university, that we are invested in your success. And we will continue to do that as a philosophy. Equity, inclusion, and diversity is one of those areas where I think we make progress in making sure that we don't leave anyone behind. And that has been part of our social mobility initiatives, and we'll continue to focus on those. So with that, I'm going to close and just say thank you for your time. Again, I apologize for not being there in person. I know we have a number of folks from New Mexico State that you can engage with, and I want to do a shout out for Lenny Martinez, former chief of staff of mine, but someone who's very, very focused on all things that relate to diversity here, and also with engaging the local community. So he'll certainly be one of our key spokespeople in the workshop. And thank you again for your time. And with all things said, I think the future looks bright. And we're looking forward to a great year with partnerships with all of you that are in the economic development community. So thank you very much, and go Aggies.
So as you can see, things are really looking up at New Mexico State University. But more importantly, the partnership that we have had with this region is one that we look forward to continuing in a major way. Now, as Arvin said, we've been talking for a while, since the last time the Chancellor was here. And at one of those conversations, somebody said, why can't this region be a national model for energy transition, and particularly for the way in which agriculture merges with energy transition? And from that conversation came a concept which was presented to the Western Interstate Hydrogen Hub Consortium to be a demonstration project in the proposed concept paper that went into the Department of Energy, a proposed demonstration project in this region that focuses on how agriculture can become part of energy transition, and in this case particularly transition to a hydrogen economy. And so Chris Hunter is going to be presenting this idea, but I think it's important to recognize and to express how excited the folks at WISH were when they got this presentation. And I think the excitement was because of the potential for this region to really, as we said, be a model for how these transitions should take place. So without further ado, Chris Hunter.
Thank you, Louise, and Greg, if you could put up that first slide for us. So I just want to say thank you to New Mexico State University. When Arvin went down a year ago, I think now, Arvin, to visit with people, and he came back and shared with me, I'm a consultant to Four Corners Economic Development, and I listened to who he had met, and I was paying attention to what was happening with energy transition, and we sat back and we got on the phone with Dave Zeller, who's the CEO of NAPI and a FORSED member, and we started collaborating. So this project is truly, I think, a best practiced example of community collaboration with a lot of people, brainstorming what could be, how could it work, and how would it advance. New Mexico State's going to play a critical role in that, as you'll see in just a minute, in helping us. We're bringing the firepower of state institutional research to bear on the process, the political connections they have, and obviously we don't know how the project will turn out, but we got the right horsepower, and we're pleased to share that with you. We call it the NAPI Energy Transition Project. Fossil fuel is a key part of what has historically been our economy. We're all mindfully aware of changes coming to fossil fuel. Hydrogen represents a new frontier, and agriculture has always been a backbone of Farmington. Just think about the name for a moment. So as I've plunged in and learned more about our economic development assets, I'm increasingly convinced agriculture plays a part of that. You can learn more about our competitive asset assessment process on our website, but ag is very much a part of the picture. Now, I realize this diagram is smaller than I would like on the screen, but it is a holistic diagram. This is an ecosphere of what hydrogen could look like on a farm. You start somewhere with getting hydrogen. There are a variety of ways of making hydrogen. I wouldn't focus so much on where the hydrogen comes from as much as what it can be used for. And that's really the focus of what the Department of Energy Hydrogen Hub grant program is all about. And we need to be very creative. So it's been fun sitting down with Dave, Lionel Haskey, who's not here, the New Mexico State people, Arvin, myself, and just saying what could be. When we start to think about where energy is used or carbon dioxide is used within a farm setting, we just started putting things up on a diagram. And everything from powering a forklift to electricity to run an irrigation pump to greenhouse heating and CO2 enrichment, the list goes on and on and on. I happened to see a picture of Cliff Horace, a number of us know him as the local automotive dealer, in a greenhouse in Iceland, of all places, with an enriched atmosphere for tomatoes. It's like, okay, Cliff, this is what we want here in our own local community. Why is there a picture of a mine in all of that? Well, one of the things that New Mexico State brought to the table is, hey, Chris and team, read this article in Nature magazine about how basalt rock can be ground up and applied to soil to sequester carbon dioxide. I said, well, that's really cool, but wouldn't it also be cool if we could actually power the trucks and the mine shovel and everything else with hydrogen? Well, as you start to look at what's happening in industrial manufacturing today, the role of hydrogen fuel cells is huge. You'll see a tractor there also, similar sort of deal. Lithium-ion batteries in tractors don't work because when you think about the weight of just a Tesla automobile, for example, all right, imagine what kind of battery power you'd have to have in a size John Deere tractor like that. You put it out in a wet field and pretty soon you never even see the tractor. So hydrogen fuel cells and partnerships with a whole variety of people, turning NAPI and San Juan County into the experiment station for hydrogen energy for ag for the United States is a dream that we're working hard at Forced to bring to the table. And this means jobs and investment capital and creativity and an exciting future for energy here in San Juan County. And energy will always be a part of San Juan County. So all kinds of stuff I could go into there, but I wanted to touch on some other things here. Here's an example of rock dust actually being applied in a farm in Illinois. So they're just now starting to talk about this. Basalt is present in New Mexico. I don't know that we have basalt being mined, but if we started to mine basalt, you can see how that is high-wage, sustainable jobs. There's a picture, and this is just really, really recent, of a hydrogen fuel-celled mine haul truck. So they're testing these. This is not all pie-in-the-sky stuff. This is real stuff that's happening today. So here's some details on the project. It's a phased project. We don't have all of the details and specifics put together on it, but we know that we're moving sequentially down the road, and that's what we've got to demonstrate for viability for the project. So 3 phases that you can see, build out. Ultimately in phase 4, we'd like to be 100% sequestered. And so looking at lots of different angles on that. Oh, let me back up here. You know, a lot of people don't know about NAPI. And I would encourage you to go to the aforesaid website, click on the agriculture page, and there's a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dave and Regine at NAPI, for getting that to us on what NAPI's all about. We have 78,000 acre farm under Pivot, just immediately south of us. It is one of the largest farms in the country. But that farm is located in a strategic area for this hub. We are in the middle of what the DOE is classifying as a disadvantaged community. Now, that doesn't mean we're victims. It just means we're disadvantaged as the DOE applies that, and that includes all of San Juan County and all of the Navajo Nation. So we're right in the middle of all of that, and that helps us with our grant application. But on top of that, we're in the middle of a food desert, and that is something that New Mexico State's vitally aware of as we're working on Food Hub, and San Juan College is doing that, and so is New Mexico State. But our ability to potentially to grow crops within NAPI's greenhouses, which don't exist today, to enrich the quality of life and nutritional well-being of all of our citizens, and the Navajo in the 10 chapters surrounding the farm included in all that, is a pretty exciting deal. And that leads me to my last slide, and I'm not going to read all the bullet points, and I realize they're small, but one of the criteria that is evaluating these hydrogen projects is something we actually excel in, and that is what's called the DEI EEJ criteria. What that means is the federal government is saying you need to demonstrate in your project beneficial improvements to targeted populations of people that otherwise have been left out of industrial development in this country, and particularly energy development. So when we start to look at the ways that we benefit our population and recognize that we have a lot of population here that will benefit from this, both Navajo and Anglo alike, we check a lot of boxes, and we don't have to stretch our imagination to demonstrate tangibly how to do that. So we're excited about the project, very pleased to have made it through the first round, and we're now pressing hard to the next round and accelerating our project development. So Luis, let me turn it back to you, sir.
Thank you, Chris. One of the persons that's not at the table and would have been nice to have here is President Pendergrass from San Juan College. One of the key elements of all of this energy transition is going to be workforce development. And we believe that between San Juan College, New Mexico State, and our neighbor, Fort Lewis College in the Four Corners, that those three universities can be central to creating the curriculum and the opportunities for people to transition to the new jobs which this energy transition is going to create. So as I've said, we're very interested in continuing this partnership. And this partnership has been here for a while, and one of the key aspects of it is ACES and the Agricultural Experiment Station in the region. And as you've heard, what we're talking about is the role of agriculture in the energy transition. And today we have with us the Dean of the College of ACES, who's going to be talking to you about what's happening in that area and how this might be valuable to this whole transition we're talking about. Rolando.
Good morning. Can we have the presentation, the slide presentation, please? Well, thank you very much for your time and your patience to listen to us. And what we wanted to convey to you is, first of all, for some of you, you might not have the whole idea of what the College of ACES, as we call it, since it's a very long name. It is part of what we do. But as Dr. Cifuentes mentioned, we are intrinsically linked to some of the areas that we are working in the state of New Mexico. We are, in our vision, we are looking at agriculture in a different view. We're still looking at the traditional approaches. But as it was mentioned in terms of energy, one of the ranches, the largest ranch that we have in the college, Corona Ranch, we already have 39 wind turbines producing energy. We are going to have some solar panels. But just as an anecdotal fact, if you go to Los Angeles and you turn on the light, some of that energy is coming from Corona. So anyway, so I want to, let me see, I'm trying to figure out where do I point this. Okay, good. So what are we, what do we do, what is our vision, what do we want to go? If you look at the mission of the college, is to be an engine for the economic and community development in New Mexico. And look at those two components, economic development and community development. And I have here my colleagues and that I will introduce you, from the experiment station and from the cooperative extension service. So we have a long tradition of being involved in the community development and in the economic development. And how do we do this? We do this through the three major functions of the college as a land-grant university: teaching, research, and extension. So where do we want to be? Where do we want to go? If we look at economic development as one of our major components, our major drivers, obviously we want to be the best land-grant university in the Southwest, but after that, we want to be the best land-grant university college, part of the university in the nation, in the areas in which we have our strengths. And our strengths are in arid and semi-arid lands. And that's what we are working on too. And those are the big challenges that we are working. We are not in the Midwest. And you know that traditionally all the focus of the federal government has been mostly defined by the needs of the Midwest in agriculture. And that is in process of changing. And we need to make sure that they listen to what we do, because it's very different. And all of you know that in the Midwest, in 1 acre of land, you can have 30, 50 cattle. We need 60 acres per cattle. And just only to mention some of the things. So our conditions are changing drastically. This is it's going to be tough for me to read all these numbers, but I just only wanted you to look at how is the size of the college compared with the other colleges in NMSU. And if you notice, we are around 1,400 undergraduate students, and that put us, obviously the College of Art and Sciences is the largest because most of all the students take courses to go through the college. In terms of the student demographics, and this is what I want to bring to your attention, how and follow up what the Chancellor said. When you look at the NMSU 30 years ago, the Anglo population of the student body was around, the Hispanic population of the student body, it was about 20%. If you look at our current numbers right now, and I'm going to take this out of here so I can. If you look at the numbers, and I apologize, I give you the back, but I cannot see it from over there. So we have in the order of 1,400 undergraduate students, plus 200 graduate students. A couple of interesting facts here is that the Hispanic population is 57%, which is very comparative to what the demographics of the state. The college has 3.5 American Indians, or first Americans, in in the college, which is interesting. Is larger by almost 1% compared to the university. And one of the major colleges that departments in the college that attract the first Americans are in the animal and range sciences. But very interestingly is the 68% of female students. When you look at the population of the state in the ranch and farming population of the state, the average age is 62 years old, and mostly males. There's a tradition in New Mexico of female ranchers and farmers. But what this look is how this is oriented the demographics in the state. And this is not only in New Mexico. This happened in many of the states of the union. So this is critical, and that's what it was mentioned by the Chancellor. How do we need to? This creates different role models for the students. By being a Hispanic serving institution, what does it mean? What is the meaning of that? According to the federal ranks, it says when you have 25% of the student body that is Hispanic, you can be a Hispanic serving institution. But when you look at the college, at NMSU, it is 73% of the student body are students of colors. So as you can see, the NMSU is really providing for the service of all the New Mexicans. And that's where our goal is, to not only represent and serve the students, all the students of New Mexico, but all the communities as much as we can. And one of the most vivid examples is what we do here in this part of the country with our extension specialists and with our science center, which is the only science center located in a first American land or nation. In terms of sizes, here is our VP of research. He's not going to let me lie to you, but in the last years, the College of ACES has been the #1 college in submitting proposals and being proposals granted. And this has been a concerted effort in terms of how do we move forward. So the state of New Mexico does a large investment in NMSU. It's in the order of 46%, 44 to 46%. And our faculty is responding to that directly by attracting funds from federal and private sources. And that's extremely important. But the important thing is, what are we working on? We are working on solving the problems of New Mexicans. Let me just give you one example that I will give you more examples later on. Let me conclude this part here. And you can see the size of the college and everything. In terms of personnel, I was mentioning, in terms of the students, the College of Arts and Sciences is the largest. In terms of personnel, the College of ACES is the largest. We have presence in every single county of the state. We have the 12 science centers. And in total, we are over 1,000 employees in the College of ACES. This is if you go to the College of ACES in the academics, we changed the presentation of the website because the students, when they are going to look at what am I going to study, they are interested in not in the names of the departments. The names of the departments are complicated. Honestly, when you look at a department that is called entomology, plant pathology, and weed science, you get lost in all of that. So what we have is, those are the areas of interest: animals, plants, food, business and industry, health and well-being, natural resources, education, communication, applied biology, and agriculture. In summary, the College of ACES is an applied applied college because we applied in biology, in zoology, and some of the the other fields. So these are the 8 academic departments in which we conduct the instruction. So I was mentioning at the beginning that the college has 3 major functions: teaching, research, and extension. And I'm not going to go into too much detail. I presented to you the academic part, which is the teaching component. But we have the research component. That's the third leg of the stool. And what we have here in the College of ACES in the agricultural experiment station, and we have with me Kevin Lombard, Kevin, which you know very well. Here is located in very strong collaborative work that he does with the Napi Nation, with the Navajo Nation, with the Napi, and with all of you, and is exemplary in the type of work that we have done. As the first place that we did some work, experimental work in hemp, and also is very linked in many other activities. If you look, I came from a different university 6 years ago. I came from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, and I have a colleague from the Midwest here too, from Kansas. But one of the things that is different is that large university, it will have 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 individuals, faculty, that are in depth in a specific area. As an example, let me tell you, I was the department head of food science and technology. We have 30 faculty members. In New Mexico, we have 4. So it's very difficult to go and compete for grants with all those large universities when you have only one person in food safety, or when you have one person in soil chemistry, and so on and so forth. But what we have gone around that is by developing teams. The problems that are to be solved in agriculture are extremely complex, and the tradition that one faculty member in his or her lab will solve the problems, it is no longer anymore. So one thing I have to praise my colleagues and the faculty in the College of ACES is the ability to put teams. Because we have several examples. 3 years ago, we put a team together on artificial intelligence in agriculture. So who was going to think about artificial intelligence in agriculture? Well, we put a team from the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Engineering, and driven by the College of ACES. This team started working 3 years ago, submitted 3 or 4 proposals with no success. Finally, we got a proposal for $800,000 from the federal government to work in labor force. This is one example. 2 years ago, we put another team on carbon management. And already that team has brought not only findings and discovery in research, but also attracting a lot of funds. So there's always ways to look for alternatives to how to do it. I'm originally from Costa Rica. My mother used to say, hay que buscarle la comba al palo. That means you have to look for the curved part to the stick to bring the fruit down. So some of the areas and the slides will be available for you. I'm not going to go through all of the detail here. The experiment station initiatives is creation of center in dry land resilience. As I mentioned to you, we want to focus our expertise in dry and semi-arid lands. Creation of the New Mexico Reforestation Center, which it was very timely. That's happened last year. And like for example, New Mexico, 28% of the land is forest. I don't know how many is left now after the fires that we have. But the interesting thing on this is that the only place, the Chancellor mentioned this, The only place where seedlings are produced in the southwest, I'm not saying New Mexico, southwest of the US, is in our science center in Mora. We produce 250 seedlings a year. And it's where we have the seed bank for seeds that are drought tolerant, because that's the only thing too. You can bring seeds from Oregon or some other places, but they won't stay. They will last here. So we produce 250. After all these fires and all of this, there is a need for 300 million seedlings in the state. So the challenge is big, and is something that we are working with the legislature, and we are working in this center. The New Mexico Reforestation Center includes 3 universities, UNM, Highlands, and also the New Mexico Department of Forestry. So we are teaming up on this area. Right now in the legislature, we have the request for several positions more for the increase of production of seedlings. We were talking in the way back in the plane here, in the way back, that this is not going to be solved only by universities. We need the private business involved in this. Entrepreneurs figure out, we have the know-how, how to produce seedlings. The major problem that we have with all these fires, as you know very well, is that the forest is the source of water. And the less forest that we have, the less water that we have. And that is one of the biggest challenges. Another one I was mentioning about, it was mentioned in the Corona Energy Initiative, is where we have the 39 wind turbines. We are having a farm that is called the Heritage Farm in campus. And one of the things we want to do with that, it used to be called only the Heritage Farm, but now we call it the Heritage Farm, the path toward the future. And why is this? Because we want to make a lot of demonstration of how to implement new technologies. In one of the science centers close to Las Cruces in La Mesa, Line Decker, we are incorporating different technologies for drip irrigation, but this is low energy drip irrigation, and the other ones to preserve the moisture in the soil. Now, we are not going to reinvent the wheel. Some of these technologies are brought from Israel and some other places, because we don't have time to reinvent the wheel here, and that's what we want to accomplish. And then, extremely important, digital agriculture. And this basically is preparing the farms and the ranch for the future. What do we mean by digital agriculture? Well, all of you that are in ranching, you know that, and in farming, more and more, you have less labor available. And let me give you an example. The acreage of chili in New Mexico went from maybe 10, 15 years ago, it was 35,000 acres of chili. Right now it's 6,300. Where all that production go? The plants that process the peppers is still processing them, but the peppers come from Mexico or some other parts, because we don't have labor. A rancher, when he wants to have a herd of 1,200 cattle, how do we do that? With just 2 cowboys or so. So we need to develop and implement new technologies, application of drone technology, and we are including that now into our instruction in the Department of Agricultural Education and Extension. So we're having a faculty that is looking into drone technologies. So these are some of the areas that we are working. Obviously, we have a very aggressive program right now with the funding of the legislature to complete installing 215 weather stations in the state. This will make New Mexico the #1 state of coverage of weather stations. And you know the importance of weather stations for insurance, for predictability of models, and so on and so forth. And that is something that the college is actually conducting. I want to introduce my colleagues, which you already know from extension. From extension, Bonnie Hopkins. Yes. Rick Griffin and Augusta Ahom, and I probably criminalized your last name. Okay, sorry, but all of you know Bonnie and Rick quite a bit. Highly dedicated individuals working in value added and in different aspects of extension. So the areas of extension. So the best known extension programs include obviously the 4-H youth development. We have over 30,000 students in our programs in the whole state. And we know for a fact that the students that participate in 4-H, they have a brighter future and more adapted to college applications. We have the agricultural and natural resources, family and consumer sciences, and community economic development. I'm going to address the community development later on. Other emerging issues, the wildfires. We have specialists that are working currently on wildfires and wildfire control, homeland security, financial mediation, public official training, workforce readiness, and other health topics, diabetes, obesity, food safety, mental health, and very strong programs in the COVID-19. So as you can see, the wide area of work of the college is the area of work is pretty wide. We work, that's why we have such a long name, because we are working in different areas, and we have to be careful that if what we get into, we do it properly, okay? Before I want to introduce I think I already introduced my colleagues from San Juan County in cooperating extension, and also in the agricultural science here in Farmington. I want to make public something that we have been in the making for a while. You notice that in the mission of the college, we talk to be an engine for the economic and community development. We have now a position in the college that is an assistant dean for economic and rural development. Probably one of the few in the land-grant universities. And I have the pleasure to have him here with me, which is Dr. J. Lily White. And so he is going to be moved from the leadership of the AgriCon to lead this other program. We also have other programs like the Indian Development Program, which is very clear. And I'm going over time, correct? You should have told me that. So, you know, one time they told me, you know, for a faculty member, you just have to give him $2 to start speaking and $15,000 to shut up. So I was looking for the check. So thank you very much.
All right, before we go to questions, I wanted to make one comment. This is a critical time. There's a significant amount of investment that the federal government is making in research and development. And the one thing that you hear is geographical diversity. And what that essentially means is that it's time for that investment to come in the middle part of the country and not just be focused on the coasts, which is why this is our time right now. The demonstration project that Chris talked about is a fairly high, what they call technical readiness level. But in the energy transition environment, in the carbon capture environment, in the value-added ag environment, there's a tremendous amount of R&D money out there, and we can get together, we can partner together to bring that money into this region. And then we can partner together to create the workforce that is going to be needed to make that happen. At the WISH meeting, the Western Interstate Hydrogen Hub meeting, they asked everybody, what is success? And my answer was, based on what I've heard from my conversations here, success with a hydrogen hub is if the wealth that is created stays in the region in which that wealth is created. And I think if we partner together, we can make that happen. So I'll open things up to questions.
How much a priority is the freight rail project in your planning process?
The local one?
Yes, sir.
The demo that we're talking about is not connected to the freight rail project. However, from a H2 hub perspective, New Mexico is primarily going to be involved in the production, processing, and use end. And so there has been a fair amount of conversation in transitioning rail from diesel to hydrogen. And one of the things unfortunately I'm under NDA, so I have a little hard time with details.
Okay, thank you.
This is for Dr. Lillywhite. Looking at, and maybe even Dr. Flores, looking at agriculture, one of the areas that we're really looking at is how do we revitalize agriculture development? You know, Dr. Flores talked about automation, digital. One of the big issues that we have here in this area is labor. And how do we incorporate that, or how do we build that aspect up? Or is there ways that we can utilize technology and utilize really research to begin to revitalize agriculture development here in the area? Because again, we tend to think that there's a lot of advantages to this region in terms of agricultural development. But again, that's one of the things that we're looking at in terms of community and economic development. So I just want to get your points of view on that aspect.
So that's a great question, and I will say there's never been a better time to be in agriculture, and especially in New Mexico and then the Southwest. I think that technology, traditionally we've had troubles competing with very large farms and economies of size and scale, and that's still true, but technology is changing that. So it's making the playing field more level. So there are going to be opportunities for us to jump in on those technologies, and we can compete using those technologies, using the labor force that we have, building that labor force, that workforce development that we talked about. But there are going to be many opportunities, and the university and the college is working on some of those. We have a container farm that's in grants now that is exploratory. It's not there yet, but we're working on those opportunities. You heard some conversation about greenhouses and enhancing that with carbon dioxide. Those are going to be the types of technologies that open doors for us in this community and in this state.
Let me address that a little bit from a different point of view. It's not a matter of only economic development. It's a matter of survival. We have to produce the food that we have to produce. We all saw how the food chain got affected by COVID. And like COVID, there are other ones that are going to come. But the problem is, where are we getting the labor? So we are confronted with a rural population that is diminishing, is reducing in numbers, and the youth wants to go out, goes to go somewhere. So how do we, if you go and look at an individual that is 15 years old or has been working in a ranch or a farm, or it is in the city and likes agriculture, how is this individual going to start a farm or a ranch? It's almost impossible. If you don't have inheritance from a land, it's almost impossible. So we need to do several things. We need to attract urban youth to the ranches and farms, and keep those that are there. But we need to equip them properly. That's why we are working now more in digitalization of agriculture in some of our training for agricultural education and extension. So I really think that is the crucial thing. how are we going to keep the production? So there are two ways. One is having more labor in, and the other one is with digital technologies.
Economic development, then, Dr. Van Winkle, how, the chancellor came here and he talked about having a presence in economic development, and he had his full council here. What is the university kind of envisioning in terms of how they may be able to assist this particular region, and how to best partner with us as we look at, in this case here, we're transitioning from a fossil fuel economy to looking at how we can diversify the economy. How does the university see itself being that partner to assist us in moving through that transition?
Got it. Okay, so Arvin, thank you. That's a great question. And it's quite frankly one that we've been wrestling with. And so, we have to take a look at economic development from what can in our case, NMSU, how can we influence economic development? And so we put together a team at NMSU that includes all the deans from all the colleges, a lot of our business folks, Arrowhead Center, those experts in economic development that we see can help answer your question. And so we've developed a plan that is built around how we think NMSU can influence economic development. And in that plan, I just pulled it up because I didn't want to forget some of the components. But number one, we've got to figure out how to develop workforce, which is to Rolando's point and to your question. That is part of one of the components that we think we can influence, not just through ag, but the College of Business, the College of Arts and Sciences, engineering, the College of Health and Social Transformation. We think all of those colleges can play a role. So workforce development, real estate development. There's some potential in real estate development that certainly plays into economic development for even our rural communities. Network and partnerships, which I feel like that's what we're doing today, talking about the problems and the issues in our state that are related to economic development. Technology transfer. Once we figure out how to digitalize agriculture, how do we transfer that technology into reality? Then the producer of research. What new research is going to come out that will allow us to employ new jobs, give students opportunities in new fields, and it doesn't just have to be a suburban situation. It certainly can be rural. So the producer of research, and then businesses and entrepreneurships. Those we have the expert in influencing the workforce in terms of developing new businesses and becoming entrepreneurs, and then the health industry. That's something that's a growing industry, of course. We're going to need folks to take care of us. As you know, what are we, 6,000 nurses short in this state? And that's not just in Albuquerque. I was in Alamogordo last week. They have a hospital, regional medical center. They need 160 nurses. They have 100 nurses. They're employing 60 what do they call them? Traveling nurses. Those traveling nurses are being paid $110 to $140 an hour. The student who gets an ADN, which is an associate's degree in nursing, can start at $30 to $35 an hour. 2-year degree, that's $60,000 a year for someone right out of a community college. Those are opportunities from an economic development standpoint that we can spread through the entire state, including this part of the state. So that's a long answer to a short question, but that's where we're headed.
Thank you. Last question, really looking at Dr. Winningham, and again, I've been educating myself about the Arrowhead Center. One thing I think that up here in this part of the region, I don't think really a lot of people know what the Arrowhead Center is, what it does, and how it could possibly benefit a community. Real quickly, what do you see there in getting that word out? But more importantly, how can we work with you and the Arrowhead Center to get that information out, looking at business development, looking at grant development, looking at a number of areas where I know you can bring expertise to the region. But again, we don't know what you guys do. And we don't even know, if you go out and ask people in the community, do you know what the Arrowhead Center is? They'll probably have a lot of different answers, but nothing connected to NMSU. So just a question on that piece.
Yeah, sure. Thank you. Very good question. Arrowhead Center is NMSU's economic development arm, and we work throughout the entire state in support of the land grant mission of NMSU. Typically what we do when we go into communities is figure out where can we be complementary to existing resources, figure out ways to add value, and that can take a lot of different forms. Sometimes it's training entrepreneurs, sometimes it's providing access to capital, technology development. In a lot of cases, we're connecting resources with other resources around the state. And so there's some pretty good examples of recent projects that we partnered with San Juan College up in this area. The American Indian Business Enterprise Program just recently launched the American Indian Business Enterprise Incubator at San Juan College, and that's a $1.8 million grant, so that's a substantial award there. We also have the Agriculture Venture Center to support value-added agriculture. We've had a lot of success with our clients with the USDA Value-Added Producer Grant Program. We've helped clients win over $1 million in that program, so I think that's a great opportunity there. And then the last one I'll mention is the New Mexico Clean Energy Resilience Growth Cluster, NMSurge. And so any businesses around the hydrogen hub or any clean energy type businesses, we can connect with resources at Los Alamos, Sandia, and NMSU to support the development of those technologies. So there's lots of different ways we can help, partnering on different grants or projects, and filling any gaps that you have in economic development.
Arvin, just one last thing. First of all, thank the community for having NMSU here today. Four Corners Economic Development has one of the strongest voices in this region, in all four corners, all four states. We're completely familiar with what it's like to have classrooms empty, but to have the content available the way that you all have done this workshop this morning. You have it taped, and you have a way of letting your members know the information that was shared today. We would encourage you to do that with all of your members, to take a look at this. This was worthwhile this morning having us here. We very much appreciate the opportunity to be here. Thank you for the invitation, and I turn it back to you.
My final word here is I think we need to thank Lenny, because Lenny has been steadfast in this from the very beginning, and without his passion and his ability to network, we wouldn't be here today. So with that said, thank you very much and have a good day.
Again, thank you, everybody. Room 3, those that are interested in talking about the hydrogen hub, we've got that going on in room number 3 here. Room 2, economic development, looking at the county here and what we have going there and having discussions with MSU about that. And Chris is coordinating the group that will be going out to the Quality Center. There we'll have folks from NMSU touring the Quality Center, the makerspace, the incubators, etc. And I believe, Bonnie, you got your group going also with Dr. Flores. So we're going to be splitting up in a number of different ways, and I guess hopefully they get congregated and no one's left behind on the plane. So again, thank you, everybody, for your attentiveness, and thank you for a great presentation in MSU. Thank you very much.